How do I find the area of this rectangle? W and L. Why must I use L and W? Okay. Could I just as easily use X and Y? Why?
It doesn't matter.
The letters don't matter, but why must they be different? Because they are different values. Excellent. So the area of this rectangle, area equals LW, or XY, or lightning bolt $sign, or Christmas tree peace sign. Doesn't matter. Okay? Excellent. What if the rectangle I am concerned with is that very, very special kind of rectangle that gets its own name, a square? What do we know about W and L? They're the same. So do I need two letters anymore? No. I can use one letter, S and S. So the area of a square is still LW, but since L equals W, I can write it as area equals S squared, which is where the term squared and square root comes from. We call it a square root because it is the side that builds the square, because all three other sides are the same as it. Right? So, if I am provided with the area of a square, then how do I determine the length of each side? If area equals S squared, then through algebra, if I know the area, but I don't know S, then I have to reverse the situation, and S equals the square root of the area. Yeah? You all already know this. This is old news, right? Why am I reviewing it? Because, as I warned you yesterday, after today, you will not use this button on your calculator again in my classroom. You will never give me a decimal answer to one of these questions, okay? But before we do that, I need to make sure you know why that is the case. This symbol that you all call the square root symbol, but that isn't what it is called, this symbol is asking you to find two equal factors of the value under the symbol. Okay? That value is called the Radicand. We're going to be using that word a lot. You're going to write it down again. Radicand. The symbol is a radical symbol. I know, it's totally rad. But, how do I find the volume of this rectangular prism? W, L, H, right? L, W, H. Does order matter? Of course not. What if it is that very special kind of rectangular prism that we give a special name to of cube? Is it still LWH? But what do we know about LWH? L equals W, L equals H. So it is not LWH. What is it? It is SSS, or S cubed. Agreed? Now, since it is SSS, if I'm given the volume equals S cubed, and when it was area S squared, I used the square root, what then will I do to find the side if I know the volume? I will cube root. Okay. Area has how many dimensions? 2. I find my area by multiplying two numbers together, which makes a square. Side times side. Volume has how many dimensions? 3. So I have to multiply 3 numbers together. S times S times S. The reverse of S squared is the square root. The reverse of S cubed is the cube root, which I have written right here. What is the only difference between this symbol and this symbol? There's a little 3 there. When there's no number there, I am looking for 2 equal factors. So what do you think I'm looking for here?
3.
Excellent. To find 3 equal factors of the radicand. Yeah? Yeah. Next new word. The small 3 is called the index. The value of the index tells you how many factors you seek. So, when there's no value, what's the value? No, I can't have 0 factors of something, Thomas, because if I have no factors, I'm not multiplying. What's the smallest amount of factors I can have? 2. So when I have no number there, it's really a 2.
So there is a 2 there.
Yes, we don't write it because math guys are lazy, just like we don't write x to the 1 or 7 over 1. Except in this case, it's a 2 because you can't have a 1 root either because you need 2 factors to have any multiplying. So when there's no number there, it's 2. So I'm looking for 2 factors. What if there's a 3? 3 factors. What if there's a 4? 4 factors. What if there's an x? X factors. Whatever number that is, that's the amount of factors I need to get out from under there. Everybody good? Now let's see how smart you really are. That's the amount of factors I need to get out from under there. Yes. Bonus points to you, Jasleen. You're too quiet and wussy. Jasleen has no problem risking embarrassing herself. She is all over it. Way to go, Jasleen. Up top. I didn't even hear that, but it sounds like it was funny because McKenna is going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I can't believe you would say that, Kanika. Normally you guys do that when I say stuff, so well done. Are we good? Are we good? What? Okay. A perfect square or a perfect cube is, now, there's the real definition, and then there's the definition that we are going to use in our class. In reality, a perfect square or a perfect cube is any real number with a rational square root or cube root. Okay? That's the real definition. So, 4 is a perfect square because it's got a square root of 2. 2 is rational. Everybody good? Okay. 8 is a perfect cube because the cubed root of 8 is 2. It's rational. Is everybody good? That's the basic definition. Now, here's where it gets a little snaky, and I'll get right to you in a moment. 1.44. Is that a perfect square? It is because it is 1.2, and 1.2 is rational. Okay? But for our purposes, when I speak of perfect squares and perfect cubes at the grade 10 level, I mean these ones that have, in grade 10, I want them to have integer square roots and cube roots. Does everybody understand what I mean? Remember, we talked about integers and real numbers, yeah? 2 is a rational, but it's also an integer. So in grade 10, we're going to call 4 a perfect square. 1.44 square root is rational, but it is not an integer. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, even though technically it is a perfect square. Is everybody cool? All right. Selena, are you eating a pear?
No, lemon.
Interesting. When I was in Greece on the coast of the Gulf of Corinth, there were lemon trees growing wild. You pick the lemon off the tree and eat it. It was so sweet, it was like an orange. That's how good it was. The Gulf of Corinth is beautiful. If you get a chance to go to the Gulf of Corinth, I highly recommend it. Carry on.
Oh, right. Any number of people square.
No. Yes. No. No. If a number has an integer root, it's a perfect square or a perfect cube. You'll see in a second. All right. Turn the page over. Square roots and cube roots are almost as important to higher level mathematics as having your times tables memorized. I would argue that of all the things that we have stopped making you people do in math, second only to allowing you to not memorize your times tables, the second worst thing we have done is not force you to memorize your perfect squares and cubes. If you have them at your immediate recall, it will make math so much easier for you as you go further along. As I doubt that many of you have these at your immediate recall, I am going to ask that you write them down now. I do not care if you do or do not, but when I am going forward, and I am doing stuff very quickly because we have a lot of material to cover, if you are busy in your head going, I don't remember the square root of 289 in your Myers, you are going to be left a little bit behind every time I do that. Now you may say, oh, I can catch up if I'm just a little bit behind. That's just a drop in the bucket. But I ask you this. What is the ocean if not a multitude of drops? I know, right? That's because I'm damn brilliant. And I actually made that up. I didn't steal it from anyone. No. I'm that deep. Like the ocean. What? Okay, no, I could never be U.S. president because I wasn't born in the United States. Americans seem to think that the only qualification you need to run their country is to be 35 and to be born in the United States. Apparently, yes, you have to be 35. Apparently, no other person in the entire world born anywhere else of the other 6.7 billion people in the world, none of them are good enough to run the government of the United States because they weren't born there. Apparently. Never mind the fact that the best possible candidate for president ever in the history of the United States wasn't allowed to run for president because he wasn't born there. You guys don't know who he is, so it doesn't matter. Henry Kissinger. All right. 0, 0, 1, 1, 4, 2, 3, oops, 9, 3, 16, 4, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144, 169, 196. I don't know why everybody laughs when I get to that one. Can you explain it, Jasleen? I don't know why everybody laughs when I do 13 squared. I've been doing this for 20 years, and everybody laughs when I say the number 69. I don't get it. Perhaps you'd like to explain it to me. I
Explain
know.
it, Selena.
The point is, it bothers me. What?
What's the square root of 11? Is it 171?
121. 225. 256. 289. 324. 361. And 400. It would behoove you to know more, but know at least that. All right? Now, of course, you should see the pattern. I added 1, I added 3, I added 5, I added 7, I added 9, I added 11, I added 39. So the next one is going to be 41, because I go up by odd numbers. So the next one is going to be 441, and that's going to be 21. Right? Then the next one is, of course, going to be 484, and that would be 22, and so on and so on. Everybody cool? All right. Know them, live them, love them. They will be very helpful. Perfect cubes, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8, 327, 464, 5, 125, 6, 216, 7, 343, 8, 512, 9, 729, 10, 1,000. Now, again, I am not any smarter than you. I just have them memorized. Of course I can.
It's
256. Yep.
Oh, sorry, that was 343.
343 is 7 cubed. This is not brain work. This is simply adding math tools to your mathematical toolbox. Aye? Aye. Now, at the beginning of the year, in the first unit that I gave you, a great many of you would continually give me answers that made no sense. Continually, no matter how many times I talked about it. Why did you give me answers that make no sense? Because you refused to do the first thing you were supposed to do every time you try a math problem. Every instruction in every textbook you have ever used in your entire life always says, before you do the work, estimate. None of you ever do. Your teachers don't make you. Your teachers often skip the 4 or 5 questions in the textbook that say estimate an answer and go straight to the work. And then they wonder why you give them answers that make no sense when they don't give you a chance to practice estimating. I am, of course, not like that. So we are going to go ahead and discuss estimation. It is useful for future math. Is 72 a perfect square? Of course not. It's not on our list. But the root of 64 is 8. And the root of 81 is 9. Does 72 live between them? Of course it does. So does it not make sense that the root of 72 must be between 8 and 9? Of course. Please notice. How far is it from 64 to 72? 64 to 72 equals 8 steps on the number line, yes? How far is it from 64 to 81? He waited patiently for his grade 10 honors class to tell him how far it is from 81 to 64 without a calculator. Apparently, I need to go back to all of your Mrs. Bad Crumble classes and borrow her number line that went around the wall. Because counting seems to have been left by the wayside by all of you. 8, 17. Which means I went 8 steps out of a possible 17 steps between perfect squares, didn't I? 8 out of 17. Which means my square root must be approximately 8 and 8/17. Now you're intelligent people. 8/17 is a barfy fraction. But isn't it very close to 8 and 8/16? And isn't that 8.5? Now use your calculator for one of the very last times you are going to do this on it to tell me what your calculator says is the square root of 72. 8.48, which is 8.5. Does everybody understand? Ganika. Yep. Because it can't possibly be more than 9, because 72 is less than 81. Yes. Let's look at this one. Is 180 a perfect square? Of course not, but it lies between the square root of 169 and the square root of 196, 14. Where does it live? It lives how far from that? 11. How far there? $27. So the answer is 13 and 11 steps out of 27. Yes? Now, that is a barfy fraction. But it's awfully close to 13 and 10/25, isn't it? Which would be 2/5, wouldn't it? Which would be 13.4. And if you use your calculator, you will find that the square root of 180 is, I believe, 13.3 something. Oh, 13.41, 13.4. Amazing! $300. Is 300 a perfect square? No. But it lies between 289, which is 17, and 324, which is 18. 300, how far is that? 17 and 11 out of, how far is that? 20. It's more than 20. 35. Barfy fraction. But isn't that very close to 17 and 11/33, which would be 17.3? Really?
Yeah, so it like tastes good, but like the way you were saying barfy, you said it was bad. So it was just funny.
Good to know. Thanks. Does anything change when it's a cube root? Of course not. Is 45 a cube root? No. But it lies between the cube root of 27, which is 3, and the cube root of 64, which is 4. How far is it from 27 to 45? 18. How far is it from 27 to 64? Hold up. Just how are the best and brightest math students in Abbotsford Senior Secondary School? How are you going about solving this? No. I don't want an answer because I know the answer. I want to know what your thought process is to tell me how far on a number line it is from 27 to 64. What do you do, Natasha? Well, I pick up my calculator and I do 64 minus. What do you do?
I go 27 plus 3 and that makes 30. And then 30 to 60 is, or 30. So I'm 33. And then 60 to 64 is 4. So I go 33 plus 4. And which is 27.
Nice. Would anybody else like to offer their ideas? Because it seems to me that should take about a second and a half. And yet, every time I have asked one of these questions, I have been greeted by the resounding sound of dead silence. Or my second favorite sound as a math teacher when I ask you how to add, click, 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 on your calculators. Let's just stop for a second and realize that we all know how to add and subtract. And let's stop for a second and remember that our number system is based on 10, right? Yeah. 27 to 67 is 40. I am going 3 less than that, 37. Whoa. 18 out of 37. That is a vomitous fraction. See, I did it and she didn't even notice. Thanks, Ashni. Isn't that awfully close to 3 and 18/36? Which is 3.5, which is 3.5. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you another chance. Make me proud. 405 is between what and what? 343, which is 7, and 512, which is 8. How far is this one? No. 43 to 405. No. 62. How far is this one? Barfy fraction. But isn't it fairly close to 70 and 6 over 17, which is awfully close to 7 and 6 over 18, which is awfully close to 7 and 1/3, which is awfully close to 7.3. Does everybody see the thought process here? Now, I know that you all know you could use a calculator, but that is not the point. The point is, you are all in this class because you are planning to go forward in a university, most of you, setting. A university setting is not about finding the square root of the hypotenuse so you know how much fencing to buy at Home Depot. That is what real life is about. A university setting is based on research and investigation. So you need to know how to do this as well. Aight? Jasleen. Which part? Do you understand the very first one?
I know that you minus them,
Okay. You are aware that 343 to 405 is 62 numbers. And the distance from this perfect square to the next perfect square is 169 steps on the number line, yes? But I didn't go all the way to 512, or the answer would have been 8. I took 62 out of a possible 169 steps. Are you cool there? Okay. I'm having trouble explaining it to you any other way. You are 512. I am 343. If I were to walk all the way to you, I would have taken 169 steps. Do you understand that? And if I did that, if I started at 343, my cube root would be 7. So right here, my cube root is 7. Your cube root is 8. If I walk that whole 169 steps, my cube root, 7, will grow up to be a cube root 8. But I did not walk that far. I only walked 62 out of that 169 steps. A fraction is 62 out of 169. Right? Okay. The reason we go further than that is because this fraction is a piece of crap to work with in our heads. But it's very close to 60 over 170, isn't it? Then I cancel the zeros, 6 over 17. Still a barfy fraction to work with, but that's very close to 6/18, which is 1/3, which is 0.3. Everybody good? All of you do F by yourselves without the tickety-tick of little fingers tapping calculator buttons. That would be a wise-ass move. And I appreciate wise-assedness, don't I? Yes. It's my number one favorite thing to get from students. Right after lawyer ball. That's my favorite thing to give students. I am no longer allowed to tell you what I really think. So I am forced to resort to sarcasm. I am still not allowed. Yes. That is why all of you in kindergarten had report cards like, little Josephine is very assertive, which is code for little Josephine is a bossy, pushy little puke that cannot work with anybody else. Little Josephine is really good at making her ideas heard. That is code for she won't shut up when it is time to shut up. And I could keep going, but I won't. Is everybody good? Yes, Anjani, yes. Actually, it is true. It would be similar in an Australian classroom if I kept saying the root of 176. Because in Australia, root means sex. So when you go to Australia, do not say you root for a team. I am dead serious. In England, if you go stay at a bed and breakfast, the host or hostess will say to you when you go to bed at night, I will knock you up in the morning. That means they will knock on the door to wake you up. It does not mean they will open the door, enter your room, and impregnate you, which is what it means here. In the United Kingdom, if you smoke and your friend smokes and you don't have any cigarettes, you will ask your friend if you can bum a fag. Because that means in the United Kingdom, may I please borrow a cigarette? That does not mean that in Canada. Ask the girls to explain that too. Listen, please. Listen, please. Listen, please. I know I have gone over your 8-second attention span. I apologize. It's all right. It's not your fault. Society has done this to you people, not you. No, it isn't. It's really appalling, actually, and I'm scared for the future, but that's beside the point. What I would like for you to do is ignore these instructions. On page 122, listen carefully, because a bunch of you are going to be like, you never showed us this. I know. I have shown you everything you need to know to logically solve everything on this page. Here is what I want you to do. I want you to estimate these answers just like we did on the page right above. No calculators allowed. I know. All right, listen to me. Listen to me. I know, wait. Take your 8 seconds. Now, whatever distracted you from my 8 seconds is over. Now you're back to me, but I've just used 8 seconds, so I'll wait a second. Everything you need to do, everything on this page, you already know how to do because it's old math from back in the day. I know. Well, 8 seconds is only the average. Some of you will be less. Just like all of you know that you all have more than the average amount of legs for a normal human, right? Yes. Yes, of course it is, because there are people on the planet with less than 2 legs. So anybody with 2 legs has more than the average number of legs. On page 123, I wish for you, listen please, I want for you to use a calculator, which you are allowed to do. If the root is irrational, you write that it is irrational. Tomorrow, we are going to do some work with this page. 123, you can just use your calculator. Your answers are either a number that your calculator gives you or irrational. How do you know if the number is irrational? What will happen on your calculator screen? It will fill up. If your calculator screen fills up, it's irrational. You estimate on 122, you calculate on 123. I can't make it any simpler. Yes, McKenna. Oh, good question. Ladies and gentlemen, please observe. Everybody knows how to square root on their calculator, right? It is one of the two things. You either push, if I want the square root of 49 on my calculator, I either push square root 4, 9, or I push 4, 9, square root. You have to know which your calculator is. Cube root is the same thing. If some of your calculators will have this button, it works the same as square root, but you hit the cube root. It might be a second function like shift-tan. If you have it, use it. If you don't, you will have this button, X root. If you have a forward calculator, like this one where you push the square root button first, like in trig, a forward calculator, you will go 3 x root. Then if you choose 8 and hit equals, you will get 2. If you have a backwards calculator, there's a lot of ways it could be, but most likely it's 8 x root 3 equals. Okay? Everybody good?
Yes.
If you are rocking this calculator for whatever reason, your cube roots live in the math section. Number 4, cube root.